Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about some encouraging signs that I saw in that series with the Brewers that tell me the Philadelphia Phillies, they're getting ready for October. We'll discuss on today's episode.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You may know me from some of my other work in the Philadelphia market, doing some sports talk over at 97.5 The Fanatic on the radio. I've been over there for 5 years. 3 years I've been a credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member, and this is my third year as the host of Locked On Phillies. Please make sure you're rating and reviewing wherever you consume this in podcast form, that you're subscribing to the YouTube account. Those are the best ways to help us out here on Locked On Phillies if you enjoy the content. It'll also get you, when you subscribe to the YouTube, notifications when new episodes are posted, so you never lose track of anything going on with the Phillies and what we're thinking about it here on Locked On Phillies. So I appreciate everyone who's done that, everyone who's going to do that. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and you'll get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. A great deal there. Today we're going to discuss some encouraging signs that I've seen from the Phillies recently, especially in that Milwaukee Brewers series, that tell me that they're ready for October. We're also going to talk about the big series with the Mets that starts tonight, and Taijuan Walker is going to be on the mound. Yeah, we're going to talk about it, but we'll save that for later. Right now, I want to talk about the encouraging signs. You might be saying, Connor, what in the world are you talking about? The Phillies just went out and had huge strikeout games in back-to-back games. I'm not talking about their pitching. No, they've been striking out a bunch recently. The past 2 games, we had 16 strikeouts in game 2 and 3 of that series with the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, one of them, you won 5 runs to 1. And you look at that and you say, okay, 16 strikeouts feels a lot better when you score 5. But last night, when you score 1 and you lose in the bottom of the ninth, you start questioning, oh, well, does their approach stink? And what are they doing? And here's the thing, right? We know that the Philadelphia Phillies are prone to the strikeout. I brought it up on yesterday's episode. Freddie Peralta, he's a guy that's not around the zone a lot, strikes out a bunch of guys. Look for the strikeout to be a major factor in this game. They struck out 16 times. This is why you need to listen to Locked On Phillies and what I say. I may know a thing or two about what I'm talking about when I say what could happen with this team. But take another lesson. I don't really freak out about this because that's an understood part of this team. Part of the reason they're so good is because of how aggressive they can be. It can be exploited at times, but they believe that more often than not, their approach to play is going to play out to be a successful team. And their record of 91-61 would indicate that, which, by the way, is still the best mark in all of baseball, even with the loss yesterday. The Dodgers a game back of that best record. So, yeah, I'd say it works. They've won more games than any other team in baseball. That's my thought process on last night. A couple other things about last night's game, and this is where the encouraging signs start, right? Like, I'm not going to overlook into that game. You already have the season series against the Brewers, which means now that they're 3 games back of you, you actually hold 4 games on them because of the tiebreaker. You hold 2 games on the Dodgers, even though they're only 1 back because of the tiebreaker. The Phillies are still in a fine spot. They have some big games coming up against the Mets, so this series is huge. But I'm not looking at that game as like, oh my goodness, how in the world did they lose to that Brewers team? That Brewers team's a good team. And if you play them in October, they're going to give you a good series. I think the Phillies are more talented. The season series would show you that, but we'll see. And October's kind of a weird place. The Phillies, October experience. The Brewers, not quite as much. Not as deep runs. Like, they're just not as proven in October as this Phillies team is. So that also factors in. So that's part of why I'm not worrying about it. But one of the most encouraging trends that I've been seeing with the Phillies that I think is getting them ready for October is something we saw a continuation of last night. The bullpen has been absolutely lights out. I know Carlos Estevez gave up the game-winning run in the 9th inning, and he gave up a leadoff triple and everything like that. Once you give up the leadoff triple, you're kind of out of luck there. In the bottom of the 9th with no outs, they're just going to scrape one across. So, I get it, and he did his best job pitching out of it. No one's going to be perfect, and you acquired him at the deadline, but you didn't acquire he's not Mason Miller. He's a good closer. He's been good for this team. He's not Craig Kimbrell, who, by the way, got DFA'd by the Orioles. He's not that. He's a solid closer that's going to give you good innings in the postseason. If you play a tight game, you're playing with fire. But you also have a Ryan Kerkering. You also have, how good has Jose Ruiz been lately? You have Matt Strahm. You have Jeff Hoffman, the two all-stars. You have Jose Alvarado starting to figure it out a little bit. Like, you have some next, how could I forget Tanner Banks, pretty good lefty specialist. You have some pretty next-level bullpen arms. So that's been really, really good for a lot of the year. That looks really, really good right now. When you get to the Philadelphia Phillies bullpen, you're not thinking this is an opportunity to get this team. You're thinking, oh, my goodness, how did we get here? We're in trouble. Let's move that up to the starting pitching. Aaron Nola was dominant last night. He went 7 innings, allowed 1 earned run, had 9 strikeouts. That's a damn good performance by him. Like, that's flat out what you need to see ahead of October. So, you just had a 7 innings, 1 earned performance from Wheeler 2 nights ago. Last night, you had a 7 innings, 1 earned from Nola. Christopher Sanchez has been darn good all year. Ranger Suarez has not been great lately, but we know what he is in the postseason, or at least what he historically has been. And we know that for the first 2 months of the season, he was arguably one of the best pitchers in baseball. Those are your 4 guys. Is the starting pitching peaking at the right time? I think they are. Look at the starts these guys are putting together. They're figuring it out. Not that they needed to figure it out, because we knew how good this rotation has been all year, but like, they are hitting a stretch where they're throwing really well with 2 weeks until the postseason. Hell yeah. That's a great thing for this team. So the pitching, I don't know how much you could honestly be worried about when it comes to the Philadelphia Phillies pitching. Oh, and by the way, what wins in October again? Is it the team that hits the most home runs? Is it the team that, I don't know, walks the most or bunts the most or fields the best? The team that pitches the best puts themselves in the best place to win the World Series. That's what it comes down to. Baseball is about pitching first in the postseason, offense second. I firmly believe that. I think the Phillies are in an awesome spot as far as their pitching is concerned. The defense is what it is. I don't think they've been a terrible defensive team. They haven't been an elite level defensive team. They've been solid. They have good enough pitching to get away with it. But where that takes us to now is the offense. And people see 16 strikeouts in back-to-back games against a potential playoff opponent, and everybody goes, oh, well, this team's approach is still broken. They can't. Well, where was this conversation a week ago when they were winning games? 2 weeks ago when they were winning games? Start of the season when they were winning games? We weren't talking about it this way. No, we were just happy they were winning. It feels like we magnify problems the closer we get to October, when really this team is the same that they've been the whole season long. An uber-talented team that can be streaky, that has to get hot at the right time, just like every other team in baseball, but at their base level probably has a higher ceiling than 99% of the teams. Pretty much every team not named the Los Angeles Dodgers or the New York Yankees. And even with those teams, the Phillies are fully in that conversation. So I feel solid about where the offense is at. I look more at the encouraging signs for individuals, specifically individuals that were being plagued by injury or a little bit of a slump. Now, Bryce Harper is both of those things. He had the elbow issue, the wrist issue. They're still bothering him. It's just something he's going to have to deal with through the remainder of the regular season and postseason. But you've seen him bring a little bit of his power back recently. He went yard 2 nights ago. Okay, great. You'll love to see Bryce Harper leave the yard, get one, know he got it, feel good about it. We talked about it more on yesterday's episode, but that's good. Alec Boehm goes yard last night, and a beautiful swing, just an absolute missile out to left center field. That's really encouraging to see. After being out and put on the injured list with his hand injury and swelling from a swing that he took a couple weeks ago, to see him show a little bit of pop and look like he's swinging the bat more comfortably, more determinedly, more like that he trusts his hands and his swing more. Like, that is a good thing, because he's going to be a huge part of this postseason push. You saw what happened last year when Alec Boehm stopped hitting in the postseason. The offense kind of fell apart. He was that bridge to the gap. And Nick Castellanos has been swinging it well. You'll love to see that. So Castellanos showing pop, Harper showing pop, Boehm showing pop, Schwarber, we know he has that ability. JT Realmuto still needs to get to a point where he's starting to get hot at the right time. Trey Turner is pretty darn consistent, and we'll see if he shows pop. But you're starting to get this feeling of like, oh, that guy went yard and he hasn't in a while. That guy went yard and he hasn't in a while. Guys are getting healthier. Edmundo Sosa's back. Boehm is back. Everybody seems to be getting healthy outside of, like we said, Austin Hayes, and we keep bringing that up, still hoping for the best for him with the kidney infection he's dealing with. But, like, I don't know, man. You're starting to me, I can feel it. I don't know if you guys do. Let me know in the comments on this episode if you feel what I'm feeling as far as this team starting to put together the makings of an October type of baseball team. We always known they had this ceiling, but it's about getting hot at the right time. And I have my hand hovering over the stove right now with the Philadelphia Phillies. And while it's not full flame, you can't see it visually as clear as day, but you can feel the heat start to rise from the Philly stove, if that's a perfect example for you about where I'm feeling with this team. They're starting to put it together. They know what time of year it is. They know they're ramping up the clinch. They know they're ramping up to play with their season on the line once October begins. And more important than the loss last night, the 2-1 loss that ended on the Bowers walk-off single, you look at, is this team preparing for October the right way? And I believe they are. I will admit, they do have to cut down on those strikeouts. I'm not just going to wipe that off as like, oh, it's fine if they strike out 16 times in the game in the postseason. It won't be. I just think that's the natural risk you run from this approach. And I think they're still a great team in spite of what you've seen the past 2 nights with the strikeouts and the approach at the plate and everything like that. So we'll see. But a big series against the Mets to continue to prove it. And, man, these 4 games, they could either be really simple or it could get a little bit scary. We'll discuss coming up as we preview the biggest regular season series for the rest of the year, maybe of the year, for the Phillies. Next up on Locked On Phillies. But first, let me tell you about arenaclub.com. For most of us that like collecting cards, the idea of spending $2,000 or more on some special mint rookie card, it just isn't in the cards. You get it? I love collecting, but that's some serious money to drop. Well, thanks to slab packs from arenaclub.com, now it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of their retail price. So like maybe a Luka Doncic, maybe an Ellie De La Cruz, maybe a Patrick Mahomes rookie card. Something like that is going to cost you a fortune unless you use Arena Club, and you can go ahead and get it, again, for a fraction of their retail price. Every card that I just listed was hit from last week's Arena Club slab pack drop. Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value, a complete view of all possible cards, and clear hit rates for each one. You don't want to just be guessing in the dark. You want to see, hey, I know it's a 1% chance that I get a Mahomes rookie card, a 5% chance that I get a Luka rookie card, a 10% chance that I get an Ellie De La Cruz rookie card in this slab pack from Arena Club. And then you can determine how you'd like to take your chances. I mean, Arena Club slab packs are revolutionizing the repack game with transparency. After your pulls are revealed, they'll immediately be placed in your showroom for safekeeping, selling, trading, or auction. And the grading process for Arena Club is accurate, fast, and transparent with a full grade rationale provided, an explanation of how your card was scored. So whether you're buying, selling, trading, or displaying, Arena Club is the card collecting platform you have to check out. And right now you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/LockedOnMLB and use code Locked On MLB. That's arenaclub.com/LockedOnMLB, code Locked On MLB for 10% off your first purchase with the best place to go get cards in the business, arenaclub.com. All right, let's talk about this Mets series because this is a big series for the Philadelphia Phillies. Just a peek in at the standings, just so we're aware what's on the line. The Philadelphia Phillies magic number for a postseason berth is 1. That means if they win this game tonight against the New York Mets, they're in. Or if Atlanta loses tonight, the Phillies are in, even regardless of what happens against the Mets. But the division, well, the Phillies have a 7-game lead, and they play 4 games against the New York Mets, which means every game one of these teams wins is a full game direction in their way in the standings. It's also 2 off the magic number. So if the Phillies win 2 games, they're NL East champions. If the Phillies start to lose and struggle, and God forbid they lose 3 of 4 or 4 of 4, I don't see that as likely. But if that happens, you could be looking at minimum, right? At the least the lead could be would be 3 games, but it'd be 3 games with 6 remaining. And that would make people quite nervous. Now, you round out against the Cubs and the Nationals, so you should be able to take care of business, but you don't want to have to deal with that stress and then go into October. You want to be able to get your guys set up, set your playoff rotation, take care of business, win 2 games against the darn Mets, and go out there and take your division at Citi Field in front of them. That's the goal for the series. The expectations for the series, that's it, right? Like, I'm not looking at the Dodgers or the Brewers yet until the division is set. And then we'll decide where you put yourself and how likely it is that you can lock up the 1 or the 2 seed and get the bye. I want them to have the bye, and they should get the bye. But, like, that's like, imagine you're golfing. We have a lot of you probably golf. Imagine you're golfing, and you have, like, a 6-foot putt for par on a hole. And the next hole is a drivable par 4 that you're like, I can absolutely make it on the green. I might even have an eagle. You don't start thinking about that opportunity until you sink the putt on the hole you're on. Let's take care of the division first. Let's play the team in front of us. And then we can start to worry when that stuff is wrapped up about finding your way to the 1 or the 2 seed, right? Not that the Phillies haven't been peeking in on the Dodgers and Brewers, not that we haven't been talking about it on this show, but just that take care of business first. Take them one at a time. We'll have plenty of time to peek into the standings and see what's going on there. And you have the tiebreaker over both those teams, so you're in a good spot as far as that's concerned. But the Mets have been playing darn good baseball. They've been one of the best teams in the second half, really since London. The Mets have gone off, and the Phillies, well, they kind of sunk down a little bit. Now they've returned back to themselves. Here's my thing when I look at the New York Mets. Well, the Phillies are just a clearly better baseball team. They are. Like, look at the year. It's not that they've been really hot and they're just going on this run right now. Like, the Phillies have been the better baseball team. They have more star power. They have better pitching. They have the better bullpen. They have just more than what the Mets have. And I'm not trying to say like the Mets are the White Sox. I'm trying to say that if these 2 teams played each other, I'm taking the Phillies every single time. That doesn't guarantee anything. We saw what happened with the Diamondbacks last year. We know how series can be in baseball. Any team can beat any team on any given day. But you go out and you split this series 2 games apiece, you are guaranteed to win the NL East. You are guaranteed a playoff berth. That's the goal for this series. You don't have to win the series. If you do, great. Could they? Absolutely. They're the better team. I just told you, but that's the goal. Let's just look through really quick the pitching matchups and everything for the series between the Phils and the Mets. Tonight, we're going to talk about this more in detail coming up. Trust me. We're going to. Taijuan Walker's on the mound facing Luis Severino. Believe it or not, the Mets highly favored in tonight's game. We'll break that down a little bit further coming up in a second. Christopher Sanchez gets the ball in game 2. He'll be facing off against David Peterson. Sanchez has been really, really good lately. Ranger Suarez gets the ball against Sean Manaea in game 3. And then game 4, the one that we really want to keep an eye on, Zach Wheeler against Tyler McGill. Yeah, you're going to find a way to win 2 of these games. You are. You have Sanchez, Suarez, and Wheeler throwing. The most important game of the series to me, honestly, is going to be the Ranger Suarez start because he needs to show that he's ready for October. He risks potentially losing his spot in the postseason rotation to Christopher Sanchez, who's been really good lately. I heard Dave Dombrowski talking about this recently on the radio, and he was saying stuff like you have to weigh past performance with who's hot right now, with experience, with all of these things, which is the right way to do it. It shows me he's considering all these factors, but Ranger Suarez has the experience. He does not have the current performance. So that's something that you want to keep an eye on in this series. How does Ranger Suarez throw? But the hope is also the Phils are popping some champagne up there in the visiting locker room at Citi Field when everything's all said and done because they found 2 wins. Let's take a little bit of a look at tonight's game. We're going to look more at the matchup against the Mets starter tonight, Luis Severino, because we're going to do a whole segment on Taijuan Walker coming up. Him getting the ball on a start. My brain might explode. But bottom line, Luis Severino, tough righty. He's had a solid year. 3.77 ERA, 10.6 record, a 1.23 whip, but 149 strikeouts and 172 innings pitched. Hasn't been a huge strikeout guy. He also has 57 walks in 172 innings pitched, which means, well, about once every 3 innings or so, we'll put a guy on. Nothing too crazy there. 21 home runs. So about on par with like a solid average to above average major league arm. He's like top half of the league starter, but he's not top quarter of the league starter. Luis Severino's solid for the Mets. but he's a guy that the Philadelphia Phillies should be able to take advantage of. And this is one of those games, right? When you have these big moments, when you play a division rival closest to you in the division, magic number at 1, going to clinch a postseason berth, looking at all these opportunities, you know who I look at? I look at the darn star players on your team. I look at Bryce. I look at Schwarber. I look at Turner. I look at Castellanos and Real Muto. I look at those guys that you're paying the big money. Take Alec Boehm off the table. Take Bryson Stott off the table. Brandon Marsh, Johan Rojas. Take them all off the table. No, like they're talented enough, but I want my big paycheck guys to be the ones that drive the stake into the heart of the opponent. And that means when you have big games, they set the tone. The top 4 in the lineup, the Schwarber, Turner, Harper, Castellanos setup. If it is indeed that again this evening. JT will be back, got the day off. Garrett Stubbs caught yesterday, so you'll add that to the lineup. Lineup should be good and ready to go. Shouldn't see any omissions tonight from the lineup of anybody crazy. It's a big game. The big players need to step up. Does Kyle Schwarber have another leadoff home run in to add to his season total and build on that record? I don't know if I feel the leadoff home run, but I do think Kyle Schwarber goes yard in the game. And I do think you see something from JT Realmuto, maybe a nice little double from him after having the night off. It'll show me something good that he's feeling all right. Big game tonight. Phillies obviously not favored with Taijuan Walker on the mound. That is what it is. We'll talk about it coming up. And that's a decision that it's going to bother me one way or another how it works out tonight. We'll talk about it as we wrap up today's episode of Locked On Phillies. But let's talk about FanDuel first, because you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Why wouldn't we? They're the best. Such a great sportsbook, such great opportunity for you to bet on your favorite games. But we have something a little bit different for you right now. Now through September 22nd on FanDuel, all FanDuel customers can bet $5. And what you'll get, well, you could win your bet, and then you get whatever your winnings are. But you also get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. You don't have to win a $5 bet. You just have to bet $5. And then with a YouTube TV base plan, you're going to be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. 3 weeks free of that NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. You'll be feeling like a king. Every Sunday. Your buddies want to come over to watch football, you can do it, courtesy of FanDuel. So go ahead and check it out. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Okay. I mean, part of me gets it, part of me doesn't get it. All right. I'm not normally a very critical person. I'm not. I'll tell you when the Phillies are not playing well. I'll tell you when I don't believe in a guy on the team. I'll tell you when someone stinks and when someone's slumping, but I try and be on the positive side, and I try and be on the realistic side. This is a very good baseball team with a lot of very good players, and ultimately at the end of the day, normally those teams go pretty darn far. They don't always win it all, but normally you put together an all-star caliber team in baseball. It's a long enough season that water finds its level. You're better than the teams with the less talent. That's just kind of how it works, and then the postseason's a crapshoot. But there are times when this organization, every once in a while, because I trust Dave Dombrowski, and I trust Rob Thompson, I trust the GM Sam Fuld, and I trust the way that they handled their business, and I trust John Middleton at the top of the operation as the owner. There are times when I significantly disagree with what an organization does, and I'm trying to process if tonight is going to be one of those times. And it's not about revisionists. It's not about whether or not Taijuan Walker is going to throw well tonight. Taijuan Walker getting the ball to start this evening. They moved into the bullpen as a long reliever. He hasn't been good in that role. He was awful as a starter this year. But frankly, are the Phillies just like out of options? You think about it and you say, well, you're not starting Michael Mercado. He's gotten shelled. You're not starting Tyler Phillips. He keeps getting shelled. Like, who are you going to throw? You're not going to throw a bullpen game to start a 4-game series. You don't want to waste those arms. You could need some games down the backside of this series on Saturday and Sunday. Like, I don't know. I guess we got to go with Walker again. He's still up with the team. He's filling a roster spot. He's kind of still stretched out to start. I don't know how much they're planning on getting out of Taijuan Walker. It could be, hey, big guy, go get us 4 innings without absolutely losing us this game. And then we'll figure it out with the bullpen. But even that's better than like a full bullpen start where you have to clear 8 innings of work or 9 innings of work with just bullpen arms. I don't know how you could possibly, right? Like, part of me is like, I get it. And I still have this messed up part of the back of my brain saying to me, well, Taijuan Walker, look at the track record. Look at the ability he's shown at points. He won 15 games last year, even though a lot of that was run support. He still won 15 games at the major league level. He's been a good pitcher at the major league level for a long time. He has the back of the baseball card tells you this guy knows what he's doing more often than not. That's the dumb part of my brain. The smart part of my brain is the immediacy one, where I look at it and I say, I've watched this dude stink all year long and get removed from his position. And last time he pitched as a starter, I said, yo, you literally can never start him again in a Philadelphia Phillies uniform. He can't be on this team anymore. He has been so bad. And now it comes to this day, and that back part of my brain is trying to say, well, maybe what if something works out tonight? I don't think it's going to. I don't, folks. I'm sorry. I don't look at this game and say, well, Taijuan Walker's on the mound. Let's see. I say, Taijuan Walker's on the mound, and you're probably going to lose because everything that he's shown you this year has been inability to get guys out, inability to avoid hard contact. And part of me questions why the Phillies organization would even put him back out there. But then the other part of me is like, well, maybe he's your best chance to at least go deep into games. Maybe he's your best chance to eat 4 or 5 innings because you don't want to throw somebody out there who's going to give up 8 in the first and you got to get him out to protect the pitcher. Like, that can be the only thought process for why Taijuan Walker is getting the ball to start this game this evening. Now, how great would it be if he went out and just like absolutely diced the Mets in a huge spot? Frankly, you know what? I'm thinking about it, and maybe it does happen. Because I'm the type of person that likes to believe in the miracles of sports, the moments. We've seen them, right? A guy has something happen in his personal life. Tragedy strikes a team, and you know they're going to go out and do something special. You know they're going to rise to the occasion. The moments that make up these true sports movies that pop up from time and time again, well, they happen all the time in sports. Sometimes the impossible happens more often than you think. It's a great line from one of the great baseball movies of all time in Moneyball. How can you not be romantic about baseball? So think about it this way. Live in this world with me for a second. And let me preface this by saying I still don't think Taijuan Walker is a good pitcher right now. I would not be starting him in this game. But how cool would it be? How perfect would it be if in what could be his swan song start for the Philadelphia Phillies? Because I do not believe he will be back on this team next year. I believe Andrew Painter will earn that spot in spring training, and the Philadelphia Phillies will release Taijuan Walker. That is my prediction on today, September, 19th, 20th, whatever today's date is, September 19th, 2024 is then spring training next year. You heard it here first. Walker gone, Painter in. So there's a chance that he makes this start, and then the Philadelphia Phillies in this series clinch, and then the rest of the games don't really matter all that much, and they throw other guys, they have call-ups, or maybe they do throw Walker again, but like this will be the last start that he makes that actually could mean something to this team significantly. He's not going to pitch in the postseason. Like, he's not. He cannot be allowed to. That will be a failure. I may renounce my Philadelphia Phillies fandom if that dude throws a pitch in the postseason. But how great would it be if he goes out today and just stares the Mets in the face, and he's the reason. He's the guy that gets the win in the postseason clinching moment. It would just be amazing, right? It would almost be too good to be true, too improbable to happen. But how could you not be romantic about baseball? See, this is the crazy part in the back of my mind that thinks real life is a movie, and sometimes it turns into it. Most times it's not. And that's why I'm not expecting a great performance from Taijuan Walker, and I'm expecting the Philadelphia Phillies to fight an uphill battle tonight. And I hate the decision, honestly, to put him on the mound again. But sometimes when you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, you don't like either option. I don't like any of the options right now. So who am I to blame the Phillies for picking one when I don't have another better option? I mean, you could always throw me. My arm's still feeling pretty good as my shoulder pops like 14 times as I rotate it. Like, I don't know. You got to have somebody else, but I know they don't. So tonight, we cross our fingers. We hope. We watch Taijuan Walker between our fingers and one eye at the TV like we're watching a horror movie, and we hope that things don't go absolutely awful against the Mets. And who knows, right? Stranger things have happened. But that's just my thoughts on Taijuan Walker getting the ball again, where the Phillies are at right now, and how great of a moment it would be if he's the one, right? Shades of the Johan Rojas walk-off single against the Pirates last year to send the Phillies into the postseason and lock them into the top wild card spot. Well, Could be another improbable guy this year. Why not? It's par for the course for the Phillies. That's all for today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Maybe tomorrow I'm wearing that victory shirt and we are talking about a red October clinched. That would be awesome, right? Well, in the meantime, thank you for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On MLB. The Locked On MLB podcast with Sully, Paul Francis Sullivan, covers all around baseball. He'll give you an update on what's going on in playoff races. Milwaukee, who played last night, clinched their division. First team to do so. Go ahead and check that out. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Available on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. And that's all for today's episode. But yeah, hopefully we're talking about a playoff berth tomorrow. Fingers are crossed, right? I will talk to you tomorrow. Oh, please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff here on Locked On Phillies. I appreciate that. Now, I'll talk to you tomorrow on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.